Hey, Gao, we got a question.
Oh no. What is it?
Kellen asks, do you know when in 2025 Germany will deliver 400 pledged MRAPs that was delayed by US permits separately? Can Germany produce PAC-3 interceptors for Ukraine if US stops aid?
Okay, first question. So I need to watch out not to say too much. So the plan internally was to deliver a 120 or 140 MREPs this year. Publicly, they said they would deliver 400. I don't know why they go public and say they're going to deliver 400 when their internal documents say they only deliver 120 or 140. I don't know. If deliveries are now continuing like we did last month, or this month, I believe we're now at 73. I think we will have no issues to get to 100 this month. Deliveries should, of course, increase by time because they just started a couple of months ago, and then, of course, production capacity is getting increased and all that kind of stuff. So I think we will have no issues to actually complete the deliveries in 2025. But I think it will take the whole year, to be honest. Like when we see that we need to deliver 300 MREPs over the whole year, when it's, I think you need the whole year to actually do that, or at least quarter of a year. So there's no specific date when they can reach it or whatever. It's I think it will take the whole year. And for the PAC-3 interceptors, Germany is going. They have, I believe, they had made the first construction step like this week or last week in Germany. Where is it? Schönhausen or so. But that will take time. That takes years. So I believe we covered this topic earlier, like a couple of months ago already. The construction line in Germany is no option for Ukraine in the short term. That's an option for Ukraine in years ahead, but not now, not next year, and I don't even think in 2026, to be honest. I don't know if you have a different opinion, Erlend.
I mean, also, this is a US weapons license, so any export to the Ukraine would have to be approved by the US. So I don't see the difference from just buying it from the US industry at this point. So next question. No, that was the wrong one. And that was the same
Yeah.
one. Sorry about that. Tiri asks, just a little question. Do you know if the RBM did some notable destruction with those 36 little submunitions? So just a little about that. And what I want to say about that is that the emergency services of Dnipro, I think they stated there were 2 civilian casualties, but they were minor, not too bad injuries, so they are being treated in hospital, or I think only one actually needed treatment in hospital. But if there were any military casualties, they wouldn't have stated that in the official reports. However, the target seems to be Piedmash, and that's been identified by people who do geolocations, but it's not necessarily. So Piedmash is this big industrial complex in Dnipro, which also is connected. They do heavily contributions to the military, but it doesn't seem like the hit was very precise from those geolocations. But we don't know because there's no public information about the damage. So that's what I know about this topic. And then a friend I know very well asks, do you know anything about Alexander Darchev, the newly Russian appointed ambassador in the US? This would be for Joseph, since he is American.
Yeah, so I know very little. I just read very cursorily about this. That he used to be the ambassador to Canada for several years. He seems like a pretty experienced guy. Like he's spent his career in North America. He probably knows like his audience pretty well, I would say. And then I would this is so I would say that's like what we know about him is that he is a pretty consummate technocrat for the job. Like I would say that is my like concrete analysis, and then my speculation is based on his career and like based on just a few statements I read from him about Canada. He spent most of his career in Canada. Like as people probably know, there's a large Ukrainian diaspora in Canada. And although it hasn't seemed to be able to overcome the Ukrainian budgetary or the Canadian budgetary recalcitrance towards anything military, it does have a pretty significant political impact in Canadian foreign policy. So as a result, they've been pretty strong about like the 2014 invasion of Ukraine into Donbass, like really caused problems with Canada. I'll put it that way. And his job for the last 7 years or whatever was to like try to repair that relationship, get things back to normal. So again, me speculating, don't know for sure, but I would argue that this is maybe a signal that Putin is trying to put forward some kind of ability to make the U.S. a more neutral party in all this and offer. Reconciliation is a strong word. But what they are going to call an attempt to reconcile things, right? They're trying. I would say they're trying to send someone who is able to like tell Washington, this is no big deal. You guys just got to calm down. Ukraine's just got to accept these separatists and blah, blah, blah. Like, all that. That's what he's been doing in Canada. So I would guess that they picked that guy because they think he would be good at doing that in America. So again, me speculating, don't know what his actual posts will look like or what he might be a nobody that no one cares about, right? So maybe it doesn't matter, but it sounds like a pretty important job. I would assume that they picked very carefully who they were going to send, and it seems to me like there's a much more aggressive. It seems like Russia is acting much more aggressively towards Europe lately, right? It seems like the threats are going towards Europe more than the U.S. So maybe there's some effort there to again, keep the U.S. like more on a neutral footing in the future. But I don't know. That's just my speculation. Do you guys have any thoughts about this guy? Do you know anything about him?
Not at all.
Yeah, no clue. Well, I have one more thing before we close. A friend of mine and also collaborator of Andrew has published a very nice guide to the different glide bombs, and it's in an article at Offbeat, and it's emphasized a lot on visual aids. So he's been doing a lot of 3D modeling and mock-ups of the different glide bombs, and yeah, I highly recommend this article. It's a very interesting read. So it's all the glide bombs that are being used in Ukraine.
Yeah, that's impressive that he even modeled them. Yeah, these are really significant, I would say, tools, especially for Russia. They're able to hit with really heavy ordnance parts of the battlefield they wouldn't be able to otherwise hit, and it causes huge problems for Ukraine in their defensive positions. Would you say that's an accurate?
Yep. It's one of the most significant problems for Ukraine. That's why we've been hearing so much about this need for long-range air defenses and better radars for fighter jets that Ukraine received from the West, so that they could basically put up a shield against these bombs, not targeting the bombs itself, but the fighter bombers that are dropping them. Yeah, it's a very big problem. And but Ukraine is also using guided glide bombs, so it's a problem for both sides. Yeah, so check it out. It's on at what website? It's on Offbeat. but I put the link in the video description.
Okay, good. Yeah. So, do we have any other cues we should A?
There was. I just died. Sorry. There was one. Man. Whew. Yeah, there was one from Thierry. I didn't die because of the question, so don't feel bad. Has Germany a production of guided HIMARS ammo that could replace those from RTX? I don't think Germany produces any ammunition for the HIMARS or for MLRS like the M2070 or the German variant, the Mars 2. There's a lot of not speculations, thinking and negotiation going on right now because of the replacement of the 5 Mars 2 systems we gave to Ukraine, because Germany wants to acquire not HIMARS or again M2070 or something. We want to acquire Europulse, and it's not clear right now if we can actually integrate our ammunition with them because it needs US approval, and I don't think the US will be happy that we are not buying their system. Though there's a lot of confusion and speculation going on about ammunition and all that kind of stuff, but I don't think we produce any of that, except for, if I recall correctly, there was we contracted them to produce new 82 rockets, but they're not guided missiles. These are the ones which we delivered to Ukraine, a couple of hundred of them. I believe like 500 or so we delivered to Ukraine, and they have anti-tank mines included in the rocket, and then so you can basically remote mine a field or so with these rockets. Yeah, but that's all. Sorry, I don't think that was a very good answer, to be honest.
And my friend Astro Abacus can go and peel potatoes. Because this is not serious.
Yeah, this is definitely a case where Ukraine needed a really long range capability, because they launched these things from planes like far away, right? Erlend,
Yeah, this is an unserious question from my friend that knows better, and he can go and peel potatoes.
I think that was very serious. That actually reminds me of the stuff Elon Musk tweeted today. Have you seen that?
I blocked Elon Musk.
Yeah. So for those who haven't seen it, I had to laugh. For those who haven't seen it, I believe he made a tweet like he was quoting a video of these like drone swarms from China, right? And he basically laughed about the US still producing manned F-35 jets when we have drones. And I'm like, dude, you really want to tell me that you want to replace like F-35s or any other jets with drones who have not as near as the possible payload capacity or the range or whatever else? It's, I don't know. And that dude is serious. He is like literally serious with that.
I don't know, man.
Erlend, real quick, I had a question for you. In my report, I mentioned very briefly about that Russian guy who was detained in Norway for spying. But
Yep.
they're really the report was literally in English, like 3 sentences. It was like they detained some guy. I vaguely remember they said he had one identity, that was like a ruse, and then it was like he was really Russian, something like that. But beyond that, I don't know, was there anything you would say in the local language press that didn't translate over to the little bulletins that they got?
Well, long story short, the guy was working as a security guard. Not sure to what capacity though, from a private company that the US Embassy had probably contracted. And his lawyer has stated that he admitted that he was giving information about people that were coming and going at the US Embassy, for instance, to the Russian or to Russians and Iranians. That probably means intelligence operators that are in covert, like cultural attaches or some BS at their embassies here. I suspect that the way they found them was found out this was that our internal security services are monitoring the employees at the embassy that they suspect are working for the SVR or GUR, sorry, GRU, and the same with the Iranian embassy, basically. So this guy seems like an amateur that has been uncovered quite easily, and is trying to admit to something. We don't know though if that is everything, of course. So we'll see. Doesn't seem too serious of an incident. We had a lot more serious incidents in the past.
Right. It's just for my own amusement. I was trying to you mentioned that his lawyer kind of brought in. Was it clear, like, did he go to the lawyer and he was just casually saying, like, look, this is what I'm doing, and the lawyer was like, oh my God, I'm not getting caught up in this, and went and reported it? Or is it more that, like, the guy went to the lawyer and said, like, I'm going to kind of surrender based on the fact that I know I'm caught? Or like, what? How was the lawyer? I just feel like there's like a regular Norwegian lawyer that got caught up in this. So I'm just curious about
no. So he is arrested, and his lawyer has stated to the press that he has admitted to certain things. Yes. So
I got you. Yeah. He's the guy who got sent to the jail cell after he was arrested. Okay, I understand now.
Yeah. And his lawyer is a very notable Norwegian lawyer, probably doing it pro bono.
Yeah, it makes sense. Yeah, in a lot of these cases, you get that where it's it's just good advertising. And I'll be honest, I don't care if they have a good representation. Like, all lawyers exist to make sure the laws are followed and stuff. Like, the guy should have whatever rights he's afforded.
Even if he's a traitor and everything, that he has a good lawyer, one of the top lawyers, is very important, because if he is convicted, that means no one can say, like, he had a shitty defense and that was the reason.
Exactly.
It's very important. We had the same thing with the Breivik when he was sentenced here. Very, very good lawyer represented him, and no one has had any problems with that lawyer being his legal defense at all. That's how it should be in a democracy, where there is a proper justice system that is independent.
Yeah, I absolutely agree. It's a sign of a free society, as you said. So I think we got a couple more questions. We can probably wrap up, eh?
Yep. I'm just gonna avoid the troll Astro Abakusa.
North Korea stuff.
Have there been any updates on South Korean officers offer to send advisors to Ukraine to aid with the defense against North Korean troops in Kursk? What I've seen is that there's been statements about South Korea sending observers and also maybe some translators in case of POWs being captured. Haven't seen any more specific information about advisors. I think this is mainly that the South Koreans wants to study this, which makes sense.
Yeah, I haven't heard anything this week beyond what I mentioned in the report. I want to say, like, a South Korean, I forget exactly what I put in the report this week, but there was sort of some updates on, like, what the North Koreans are doing. What, two weeks ago or last week, I think 2 weeks ago, there was a series of, like, high profile meetings between like basically all the governments met with their armies and talked about this. Some of the armies met with each other and talked about this. Some of the governments met with each other, yada, yada. So everyone's talked about it. I would say that it's a pretty strong signal that, like, Ukraine was given this permission to strike after this all happened. In other words, I don't want to say that for sure that's a direct result, but it seems like we're going to see maybe a stiffer diplomatic stance, you know, in some of the capitals as a result of all these meetings. But as far as like, especially South Korea doing concrete things as a response to what North Korea is doing, I haven't seen any update this week. This week has been, as far as I've read, like updates on what North Korea is doing, and what they're doing is like they're getting stuff from Russia and they're deploying their troops in combat for sure. Like everyone's confirmed that now, basically. For some reason, the US was lagging on that. Ukraine and South Korea confirmed that like last week or 2 weeks ago, and the US confirmed that this week. There are like, there's been a lot of rumors on the Ukrainian side that they've hit facilities and killed a bunch of North Koreans, but I haven't seen any confirmation of that. Erlend, are you aware of any incidents where they've actually hit like a facility with a bunch of North Koreans in it? That's like a rumor on every telegram about every strike these days.
Yeah, so there was, of course, a notable Storm Shadow or Scalp EG strike in Kursk, where it looks like from the video, and that's been kind of geolocated and confirmed, that they hit underground facilities with bunker buster cruise missiles, the Storm Shadows. And there's been some reports from, well, most of them is referring to this Dosia Spiona Telegram account, which is supposedly, it's supposed to be inside information from the FSB, but I think that should be taken with a grain of salt. Although this account has been giving out some early news that have been confirmed to be correct in the past. This account claimed that a North Korean general was severely injured in the attack. So that's one. And then there's been an attack and strike where there's no BDA, no confirmation of that or anything like this, where there are rumors about North Korean soldiers being casualties in this strike, both in Kursk.
Okay, yeah. So I think it's not unlikely that they've probably hit some significant targets that have North Koreans like occupying the area. So I would say that's seems true that in 2 cases it's probably correct. So yeah, I think that's like the North Korea update, right? They're doing stuff. They're involved. They're definitely involved. They're getting hit in strikes, and governments have had a bunch of serious meetings about it. It does seem to have reflected a little bit the diplomatic stance about what's going on in Ukraine. But it's Western governments we're talking about. They're not going to grow a spine overnight. So anything else you want to say, Erlend?
No, just because we're on the Scalp and Storm Shadow topic, Mark is asking, are you following the Scalp use, listening now that the UK has loosened Storm Shadow? I think that permission was given to Ukraine at the same time, and that the French just used a different occasion where they announced this, because probably it was more convenient for them to have this news at a different occasion. I think the Minister of Foreign Affairs was speaking at some event, and then he said that we're giving more, another batch of a dozen, so 12 more Scalp EG, and that they will be that they have given the permission to Ukraine to strike in Russia with them. That being said, there is no way we can see or identify from any footage if there was a Scalp EG or a Storm Shadow. The missiles are almost the same, and yeah, we don't know if there were Scalp EGs or Storm Shadows or both in that strike in Kursk.
And I'll just say real quick, as far as I'm aware, like historically, the French are known to not really put a lot of restrictions on weapons use when they sell weapons or provide weapons. They kind of just hand them to you and say, go ahead, go nuts. They don't care historically. And like, I am certainly not a good source for this, but I also I don't know. I'll just say I've heard on the grapevine that like when they gave them Scalp in the first place, that they basically didn't provide them, like they just gave them Scalp, and like compared to Storm Shadow, where they basically talk to the British when they have a target, and like everything has to be, explained what's going on. Like the drawback is that there's a system on Scalp that makes it more resilient to EW that their French aren't comfortable giving because there's no restrictions. So it's like two different approaches or attitudes towards military assistance. On one, you have a more active like oversight of what's going on, and that also allows maybe some more allowance for giving them better stuff because there's not as much fear just handing them the keys, right? And then you have the more French attitude, which is like, just hand them the stuff, but then you're a little more hesitant to give them the good equipment. So as far as I know, there isn't much to loosen on Scalp really, but maybe I'm mistaken about that. Erlend, should I stop talking now?
Yeah, I think not an answer is also an answer, right?
I was talking to a muted mic, sorry. So it's been pretty well established, and even though there's been a lot of misinformation in mainstream media about this, that the restrictions on long-range strikes into Russia with Western provided missiles has been purely a US restriction, and that the Brits and the French have more or less given their permission to Ukraine to do this with their weapons on many different occasions, but that the US have been basically threatening Ukraine to not use any of the French or UK provided missiles, even though they could technically. And Zelensky said in an interview that he cannot risk losing all the aid, and that has been basically what the US have been saying to Ukraine, that if you do this, then we, even if it's not up to us to give the permission for the specific missiles, we will stop aid to Ukraine because this is an escalation, blah, 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 all this stuff. So, yeah, I don't think they've had any restrictions. I think this has been down to the White House changing their policy. And what I think is interesting is that the first time they do it, there's a target which is within range of other weapons that they have been previously allowed to use in Russia. So Gimlers, for instance, can reach this target from inside Ukraine. So, I mean, maybe this is a signaling from Ukraine to show the West or the US and Europe that we are responsible. We're not sending these missiles to Moscow, even if theoretically we could, because a lot of people might not know, but theoretically you can send a Storm Shadow missile well within range from inside Ukraine and hit the Kremlin. And I think that's kind of been one of the big scares of Western politicians.
Yeah, it's an excellent point, Erlend, about the U.S.'s kind of political attitude to the whole thing, and that's probably a much bigger factor. And so, as you said, it kind of gets confusing. It's a little, it's good to say, like, it's fair to say the restrictions on Scalp, in theory, are sort of being lifted in a sense if we take that into account. So I think that's like a good, I don't know. I think both things are true, basically. Someone mentioned the presidential drawdown package from November 20th. I don't know how I missed this, so thank you so much to the person in chat who mentioned it. So I'll just mention very quickly. It includes HIMARS ammo, 155, 105, 81 millimeter, 60 millimeter, and then equipment for F-16s. I think that's maybe the one thing I would say is significant. And then there's just a bunch of little stuff, tube launched, tow missiles, javelins, anti-armor, unmanned aerial systems, chemical, biological, protection equipment, stuff like that. So it's about $275 million US. Again, like, just if this were a normal aid package, I'd be like, great. But we are in a situation where they've claimed that in the span of a month, they're going to or I guess 2 months, I should say, they're going to provide billions of dollars of equipment. So 275 million is great, but it doesn't inspire confidence in me that they're going to be able to get all of that amount done in time. And again, I really hope they can. I really hope that they find a way to make sure all that money is used before January. So, thanks for that question.
I think it's when you just pledge equipment worth like, what is it, 250 million euros, something like that. It's more likely that actually most of it will be end up in Ukraine by January than when you would now pledge a 2 billion aid assistance package,
Yeah, but more what I mean is like, if let's say the amount you've got to reach is to get all that money spent is 4 billion, US dollars, then a 1 billion aid package going to Ukraine, I'd be like, okay, it sounds like if they do a couple more of these, then they could get it done. But if we're talking 275 million a week, right? That's not going to cut it in terms of getting the full amount to Ukraine. So, again, like, I'm not saying it's bad. Like, it's good. It's definitely good that Ukraine's getting military aid from the US. Don't get me wrong, but if you put it in the context of they just made the claim that they're going to send billions of dollars worth of aid within the span of 8 weeks, and this is their weekly package, I'm kind of looking at that going, I don't know. So that's the one thing that gives me pause about it. But again, just my opinion.
Have I maybe, like, do I misinterpret this? Because I always was under the impression that the aid they said they're going to send to Ukraine until January, basically, or until the end of the year, isn't that not already pledged?
It's allocated to be spent by the president. It has to be, like, they have to put together the equipment and they have to send it to Ukraine, and the president has to sign off on it. It's presidential drawdown authority. The government gave the president that amount, that much authority in dollars to do things.
Yeah, I always thought that they actually did it already. Like, I thought that was related to this. The US only delivered like 10% of their promised aid. I thought that was related to that, and that's just the remaining like 80-90% or whatever.
I don't know. That's already pledged aid. Those 10% he was talking about, which was not correct. But no, they just made a statement that they will deliver all the aid that is left in the PDA.
Correct. Yeah. The DoD, the DoD and the president have said they're going to do that. It's like the old days, Maurice, where it's like, the king is going to go fight a war and he's got to ask the parliament for money. That's kind of how this works, right? So, the parliament our Congress has given the president like X amount of dollars to do this thing, and he has to like go buy stuff with it, right? Or like so he goes to the military and says, like, I want you to send this, I want you to send this. And the military, to some extent, says to him, like, well, for us to have full military readiness, we can't send that. And not only, as Erlend said, not only have they claimed that they will send all of the aid that they promised, but that they will do it while keeping U.S. stocks like sufficient, which again seems that's a really tall order to do in 2 months. So I'm just concerned. It's like saying that we're going to go to space in 2 months. It's like a massive logistical undertaking what they're talking about to send and replace billions of dollars worth of equipment in that span of time. But I really hope they do it. I wish them like the best of luck.
Yep. Okay. Thank you.
So Ozzy asked a question about this strike, and could the choice of missiles be related to the underground penetration capability? Yeah, definitely. When they chose this target, the missiles used were the right ones. They have significant bunker buster capability. But what I'm thinking is that when Ukraine, unfortunately, they don't have enough missiles to go after all the targets that they would like. So they will have to choose between a range of different targets. I'm kind of surprised that they went for this type of target and not, let's say, another ammo depot. And that's why I'm thinking that politically it looks like Ukraine, is a lot more responsible while basically going after people directly involved with the Kursk operation. I hope to see more large ammo depots being blown up within the 560-kilometer range that we can. Let's say if they fire them around here, I mean, they can reach quite a lot more than they could before. Yeah, no, let's not put it here, because in Crimea they've been launching stuff for a long time. So we'll see. Maybe they can blow up Putin's palace in Sochi as well.
Good luck. Godspeed, boys. So yeah, I think. Do we have any other stuff we want to hit on Q&A before we wrap up?
I think that's all. That looks like we went through all the questions this time.
Cool. So yeah, I hope you guys had a good time chat. I think we covered a lot of stuff today. There's a lot going on, actually. A lot of it is like meetings and talking, and I try to cut through all that with you guys and tell you like when things happen. But sometimes it's a little hard to distinguish when talking matters. So hopefully we were able to explain some stuff to you guys that, especially for me this week, it's always good to have the Tochnyi guys around just as a group, because like with these underground cables, or like with this Norwegian spy, there's usually someone around who's looked at it in a little more depth, so you can be like, well, I heard about this, but what actually happened, right? Because usually Twitter or social media in general, or even mainstream media to a certain extent, or whatever you want to call it, like established media organizations, they do their best, but they don't always have the full picture on the ground. So it's always good to have people who are. It's not just that you need to read about something happening. You need to know enough context to know like what's important, and know that like what's accurate and what's technically correct information. Otherwise, the whole thing could just be, everyone runs off with bad information and starts talking, and then before you know it, the whole thing's just a big mess of noise. So I always am, proud to be associated with, and also to hang out with the guys at Tochnyi and gals. Who just help us kind of sort through the noise, and hopefully you guys find that useful. So thanks so much to the panel, and thanks so much to, of course, our live audience. We appreciate you guys always coming in and asking really interesting questions. It really gives us a better understanding of what you guys are interested in and what you want to know more about. So as kind of Erlend was talking about today, one of our goals is to make some of this more technical information about things like Russian logistics and the units, the military units that do it, just more available to a general audience who I think increasingly need to know more about things like this because it's, the world's becoming a more dangerous place, and things that I think were once viewed as just technical information no one needed to know. Now we all need to know what HIMARS is, right? That's just kind of a normal thing. The news just assumes that everyone knows what HIMARS is usually, because that's the world we live in now. So I appreciate the guys who do all of the difficult work to take that technical information and boil it down and synthesize it and make it accessible to a broader audience. I think that's really important work in a modern age where information is becoming more vital, but there's just so much more noise in the world, and it's difficult to sort that out. So I don't know. I'm really getting grandiose with all this these days. Thanks to our live audience. Thanks to our authors on the website. Thanks to our live panel, our little team here today. And thanks to everyone at Tochnyi who does all the production work to make it possible for us to talk to you guys. And thanks, of course, to people who watch the video on demand. We know everyone has a busy schedule. The last thing I'll say is tune in Wednesday at the same time. 2100 Kyiv is when we broadcast. We're going to have an interesting interview. We don't want to say more than that because I don't know, in the history of things, sometimes things don't work out. But hopefully, just keep an eye out for promotional material for that, and we'll see you Wednesday for an interview. Erlend, do you want to say anything about that?
No, that's what I want to say about that.
Yeah. So we're trying.
Thank you.
I've only been allowed to say so. If it were up to me, I'd just immediately blurt out everything. But more professional minds prevail, and I was careful. So yeah, tune in Wednesday, 2100 Kyiv time. I think I'll say this: keep an eye out for more stuff. We think Wednesday, 2100 Kyiv time, something's going to happen. So thanks for tuning in, guys. Also, yeah, check us out on Blue Sky. We've started there. I wasn't really. I was like, Twitter, like that's where all the journalists are. I don't care. I'm not even that big on Twitter anymore, honestly. I care mostly about YouTube. But point is, there's a lot of activity on Blue Sky. Like we're getting followers at a rate, and obviously a lot of it's the migration from Twitter, but that in and of itself is significant. Like it's pretty interesting how quickly it's taking off. So I would just tell people to maybe give it a look. Follow us on there if you want. We have something called a starter pack, which I believe German Aid to Ukraine arranged, which is great. It just like gives you a bunch of accounts you can follow that we think are like good, reliable sources to learn about Ukraine. So yeah, I think I don't know if you liked the concept of Twitter but hated the new management direction. This might be something you might be interested in, but I totally understand if you're not interested in any of that stuff. You can always find us on YouTube. We're happy to give you our information there. But yeah, if you guys are interested in like some good sources about Ukraine and also maybe some updates from us outside of the YouTube verse, then you can check us out there. So I think we can wrap it up there. Again, I already thanked everyone. I won't do that again. We'll be here for another 20 minutes. So I'll close out with a good old Slava Ukraini.
Героям слава.